Hi, I'm Lisa from Lori's Country Cottage. Welcome to How Tuesday. Today we're going to use the coaster ride pattern to make 4 silicone protected coasters. They'll protect your furniture from hot, cold, and wet. And while we're at it, why don't we make a little holder for the coasters as well? Let's get our supplies together. You'll need the fabric, the pattern that comes with the silicone inserts. Once you have the pattern, you can make more just by buying the inserts on their own. Have some coordinating thread. You'll need some, she suggests double-sided or single-sided fusible foam, the inner foam. I didn't have any, so I just used soft and stable, and I'll tell you how to adjust your pattern as we go. You'll also need some SF 101 shape flex or some kind of woven interfacing, some binding clips, and you'll want to have an applique pressing sheet if you're using the fusible product. The first step is to make the templates. You'll need both template A and template B, and you'll need a piece of paper to make those templates. Now it's time to cut out your fabric. I decided to fussy cut the tops of my coasters, but not the bottom. No one's gonna look at the bottom anyway. I wasted a little bit of fabric doing this, but I thought the sunflowers were too pretty to mess them up. Do all of your cutting according to the instructions. We're gonna make the coasters first, and we're gonna sandwich the foam in between our backing piece and our top piece. I used glue to attach mine because I didn't have fusible inner foam at home. If you are using a fusible product, make sure to fuse it from the top, and then flip your coasters over and fuse them from the back as well. Take your binding pieces for the coaster, and we need to cut them at a 45-degree angle. So first, we'll line up the diagonal line on our ruler with the very end of our strip and make a cut. Now measure the appropriate distance and mark a little line on the top of your strip. Line up your ruler again on that diagonal line on your ruler and make that second cut. And now your binding pieces are exactly the right size for your coasters. Take those diagonal cuts and place them right sides together. Notice the 1/4 inch dog ears on each side. You need to do that so that the strip lays flat. Stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, trim your little dog ears off, and then press those seams open. Fold your 4 binding strips wrong sides together, creating a tube. Now we need to mark the quarter marks for all those tubes. You can either use a marking pen or pins. I find pins a little bit faster, and it was hard to mark on my dark fabric and I had light fabric, so I used pins. Now take your coaster sandwiches and mark on the back. You'll lay it on top of template A and use the lines on the template to mark the quarter marks on the backs of the coasters. Now lay your silicone on top of the right side of your coaster with the bumpy side up and clip at those quarter marks to hold them together. Lay your binding on top with the raw edges together and clip at the 1/4 inch marks, and then in between those 1/4 inch marks. And now you're going to stitch with a scant 1/4 inch. Flip the binding to the back and clip in place. And hand stitch your binding. I tried to do machine stitching on one of them. It didn't look nice, so I took it out. It's best to do the hand stitching here. And now it's time to move on to the coaster holder. Prep all of your holder pieces according to the instructions. Here's the base exterior with foam and the stabilizer on top. Your exterior side piece, let me do that over again. Your exterior side piece is either fused or glued to the foam, and then you need to edge stitch with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance and clip every 1/2 inch, making sure not to clip into your stitching. Put your short ends right sides together and stitch them, and then press it open. And now our side is ready. Lay the clipped edge right side together on the right side of your base and clip or pin in place. See that little pucker I have in there? Make sure you work all the little puckers out and use lots of clips or pins. That's better. Now everything lays flat. Stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's just inside your stay stitching. Trim your seam allowance to an 1/8 inch. Now let's build the interior. Here's the interior base and the interior sides. Again, we're going to stay stitch that side piece with a scant 1/4 inch. Clip into the seam allowance every 1/2 inch. This time when we stitch our short ends together, notice how the stitch is graduated. Follow the instructions, but as you stitch from the bottom to the top, your seam allowance will become smaller. This lessens any bulk at the top of your coaster holder. Clip your side piece and your base right sides together. Again, work out any wrinkles that appear. Now stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Again, that's right beside your stay stitching. Trim your seam allowance to an 1/8 inch. Now let's put them together. Turn your exterior right side out and insert your interior, putting the wrong sides together. Match the raw edges along the top and clip in place. Now baste with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance around that top. Now it's time to make the binding for the coaster holder. Trim your binding to the correct length in the same way we did with the coaster binding. Join your diagonal ends, stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and trim your dog ears. Press that seam open, fold it wrong sides together, and press. Mark the 1/4 marks on both the coaster holder and the binding, and put the binding on, being sure to offset the seams of the side piece and the binding. We don't want too much bulk anywhere. Clip it in place. Stitch it on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's easier to stitch from the inside. Flip your binding around to the other side. Now you can either machine stitch or hand stitch. I did machine stitching here. It was black on black and it looked fine. And here's the holder. Put your coasters inside your holder and you have a lovely little decorative piece for your coffee table. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make the Coaster Ride coasters and that you'll personalize them for gift giving. Don't forget that once you purchase the pattern, you only need to purchase refill coasters to make some more. You can have fun fussy cutting if you like, or it's a great way to use up scraps. Your coasters don't need to match. Don't forget to subscribe to our video below and ring the bell so that you get notifications whenever we post new videos. Thanks for joining me for How Tuesday.